Welcome to Under the Brand. I'm your host, Valerie Jennings, CEO, AI strategist, and founder of Jennings Social Media and MarTech. In each episode, we go beyond the polished logos and campaigns to explore the real stories, strategies, and creativity behind the world's most influential brands and rising ventures. From bold founders to disruptive innovators, we uncover what drives brand identity, digital growth, and lasting impact. This is where business gets personal. Welcome to Under the Brand. This is our very first episode launching J. Michael's Tavern Grille with passion, precision, and plates. I'm so excited to welcome these two founders today, and we are at the weeks, maybe days, before the opening of this fantastic restaurant. Welcome to this episode. I'm Valerie Jennings. Jeff Groth and Kurt Holden are joining me today. Jeff has launched restaurants across the country, and Kurt has also owned and operated restaurants as well as many other business ventures. Our agency, JSMM, is launching the brand and marketing for J. Michael's Tavern and Grill. So let's get started with some questions. How did you two meet, and what inspired you to open this restaurant in Stuart, Florida?
Well, one of my places down the road here, Kurt used to frequent, and we became good friends, golfing buddies, and one thing led to another, and here we are.
Well, golf definitely brings people together. And Kurt, I know you also have a history in the restaurant industry, right?
That's right.
Yeah,
Right.
can you tell us a little bit about that and what inspired you to start this restaurant with Jeff?
Sure. So several years ago, being in aviation for close to 40 years now, I opened several locations in some regional airports as delis at those restaurants, and also owned a pizza shop at one point. So that's how I got in the restaurant business, and understand it a little bit. But Jeff's the real pro in the restaurant business.
Yeah, Jeff, can you tell us more about some of the restaurants that you've launched in the past? And I know it's not just Florida, but other parts of the country as well, right?
Well, I'm originally from the tundra of Minnesota, and I had a chain of restaurants up there, bar, restaurants, blues and jazz clubs, and I retired back in about 1998 and sold them all and came down to Florida, got tired of sitting around and got back into the industry. I owned a couple of them that were down here that I sold. And then I partnered up with an individual, and we had four very, very successful ones down here, and which I can't name because of confidentiality agreements. But and now me and Kurt decided to do this one.
That's awesome. Congratulations to both of you.
Thank
You
you.
know, you guys have both had interesting careers, aviation, restaurants, probably many other business ventures I don't even know about. What are some of the biggest lessons that stood out from these previous ventures that our audience can learn from?
Well, in the restaurant field, which I've been in it since I was 14 years old. It's the only thing I've ever done. Other venture I had is I owned a chain of waterbed stores in Texas, but that was back in the 80s. But I still had my restaurants. And anyways, I've pretty much self-taught from A to Z when it comes to the operations of a hospitality environment. The most important thing is guest service. It's can't be described any better than that. It starts from when they get out of their car in the parking lot till when they leave and go back to their car. Everything has got to be A1, as good as you can do it, and it has to be consistent. You have to be consistent in your product and consistent in your service. And if you can offer that, you can be a success. And again, I started when I was 14 years old, dishwashing. I worked every position, worked my way up to owner. I had bought my first bar when I was 18, and that's all I've been doing since then. I
That's
tried to retire, and that didn't work.
can't do it. That's how it goes.
And in corporate aviation as well, I think it's really important that the VVIP treatment, right,
Yeah.
is exactly the same thing. And it's, even though it's different businesses, it's all about the service for sure. It's all
Yeah.
about,
Yeah, it's the personalization. Jeff, you touched on something that I want to ask a follow-up question. You started at the intro stage of learning every aspect of running a restaurant. I feel like today's generation wants to skip to the top. What is the value in starting at square one and really learning every aspect of a business?
Well, it's the most vital thing there is, and I thank God I've been able to hire people, and I can name many examples. I won't use names, but they're still very good friends of mine, still working at places that I did own that started as a bar back, moved their way up to server. So they got, the most important position in a restaurant is the hostess up front. They're your face of your place. They're the first smile they see. So I started people that way, and then you move them into service so they get the unfortunate customers along with the fantastic customers, and they learn human nature, the way things are. Then you move them into bartending, then you move them into a floor manager position, then you move them into an assistant manager, then a GM. I have one of the places that I just went away from prior. There's a young man that's running the one in another state right now, and he learned it the way I learned it, and he thanks me for the fact that we learned it that way. Just like any business, you can't boss until you've been bossed, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's a really valuable lesson. Thank you for sharing that. So, building a brand 10, 15, 20 years ago is different from building a brand today, right? What are some things that stand out to you today and the importance of building a brand and standing out in, maybe a more crowded ecosystem or just launching a new restaurant?
I can speak about the restaurant. Brand recognition is so important. With the last places that I was involved in, people would come from long ways away to come down and see us. And then they kept saying, "You got to open up one here. You got to open up one here." Well, we did. And we just basically moved that concept, kept the menus, a couple of tweaks here and there. But again, it's also the service. I pride myself on different types of things, like holding the door open for every customer that comes in, running out the cars with umbrellas and stuff like that. It happens in this industry, but not on a consistent basis. I had one guy at my last restaurant that was so amazed that we ran out to his car with an umbrella, and he was a handicapped gentleman, and so he pulled up every time he pulled up in there, even if it was sunshine, we ran out with an umbrella to the guy, and he bragged about it to his friends, and we were known for that, and we're also known for a great meal and a great drink.
Yeah. You talk about, again, things that aren't very common in the restaurant industry, unless it's an upscale restaurant, right? Like a luxury restaurant. But what you're talking about is, you really care about your customers. You want them to have a good experience. Jeff, this is a little bit of an off the cuff question for you or Kurt. What do you say to the fact that robots might run restaurants very soon someday and greet customers? Do we get away from that personal touch with robots, or do you actually see an opportunity here?
I don't see the opportunity, and Kurt can talk about the airline industry also. Stewardess walking up and down the aisle of an airplane, doesn't work for me. But actually, I've been to some trade shows where they had the virtual bartender. You know, the bar business is personalities. You lose those personalities, you might as well drink at home.
That's how we became friends. We became friends that way, and now partners through that exact comment.
And if you ever go to a bar down here that has a robot, remember, we don't. Come here.
Well, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what this looks like in the future. I read an article that said now they're looking to replace real estate agents with robots that can give the tours instead of the agents. So there is definitely a big disruption coming, but I think, again, there has to be balance. There are just certain things that human touch can't replace. So, it's interesting to also get your perspective on that after you've been in the restaurant, and Kerr, you too, in the hospitality tourism industry. So let's talk about why marketing, branding, and digital presence matter more than ever. Kurt, this kind of goes to you in working with our team. Why do you feel that this is so important in today's marketplace?
I think you said it earlier, this is a very full business, right? In restaurants, you can look around just around this block and there's, two, three, four restaurants just within a couple of steps away from each other. The marketing and consistency of that marketing is so important to continue to be the name that people speak about, right? And if you don't continue to market, you don't continue to advertise, you will lose that, and it very very quickly can go away. So that's why I truly believe in consistency in this, and it doesn't have to be over the top anymore.
Right.
Like this interview, right? Where you're in Kansas City and we're in Stuart, Florida, and we're
Yes.
doing this interview very easily.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that tells you that the market is requiring that to be consistent.
Yeah.
Back in the late '70s when I had my first place, it was newspaper.
Yes.
That was it. You didn't have you having a magazine. You didn't have everybody. It was newspaper, and it was word of mouth. My philosophy has always been in my life: you sell within your four walls. Okay, you make everybody needs to come in here, and it's just like Cheers. Everybody knows your name, but everybody feels at home. Then it turned into radio. Radio was the advertisement for quite a while, along with print media, and even that went by the wayside. Every radio ad on TV or on the radio now is it starts out with a jingle, so you originally know it, and then goes into the product. Now it is multimedia, is internet, it is everything, and it reaches such a wide space. I mean, even though the things that you guys have done for us. I was reading it the other. We had some lady from Australia that just said, "I come to Florida all the time. I'm gonna have to stop in." Okay, you try reaching out that far with a piece of paper or a radio ad.
Right. Yeah, it is. It is very different. I have had the fortunate experience to transition from all the traditional media to digital. I started off as a journalist and worked in print and TV broadcast, and then transitioned into digital. But you talk about the evolution of this business, and it's always changing, right? And everything keeps going faster, more sophisticated with the technology. And now, when we talk about brand loyalty, even in the last few years since the pandemic, what consumers expect has really changed. And they really want authenticity. And you talk about, when they come to the restaurant, you want them, not their money. And that's really what this pivot is. I mean, this sounds like it's been your philosophy always, but before the pandemic, there were a lot of, just ads, advertising heavy material, but the emphasis on influencers and authentic content and really getting to know a brand to build trust is the cornerstone of digital marketing. And when we look at the evolution, even of social media, and I started in social media in 2005. So even before Facebook was around, it was authentic interviews like this one that we're doing, and blogging and working with bloggers who were influencers. And we evolved, and now we're back to our roots, this more, grassroots style, get to know the brand, the people buying the brand, and letting the consumers feel that brand and trust that brand. Again, great business advice. Anybody that is looking to launch a brand or start a business, Jeff and Kurt both have had such an amazing business story. We're very lucky to have them. Stay tuned for future episodes where we explore strategies and tactics from behind the scenes. I'm Valerie Jennings. Thank you for watching. Thanks for tuning into Under the Brand. If you loved today's episode, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, leave a review, and follow us on social media at JSMM Tech for more insights. To learn more about working with our team or getting featured on the show, visit jsmmtech.com. Until next time, keep building boldly.